Well, Shep, new season, new studio, new threads. I mean, it's like Barack Obama's not the only one who's embracing the ethos of change around here.
Change. I think the LA Galaxy, they need change.
Well, they certainly do. The only constant in MLS is change. Extra Time is next. Welcome to the new set for Extra Time, everybody. Greg Lawless and Shep Messing here with you, and we're still coming down from the excitement of the first weekend in MLS. The first round had tons of games that just weren't even sure what was going to happen, and the only thing we really learned was that this is going to be one wild and crazy ride in 2008. Shep, obviously Los Angeles has some troubles, but let's start off with the big rematch from the 2007 MLS Cup, New England and Houston. 3-0 to New England.
Greg, that was a great game. And I'll tell you what, New England, from the opening whistle, they came out flying. Really impressed me.
Yeah, and the most impressive guys were the newcomers, actually. You're thinking about Stain Inyasi out on the right flank, Kenny Mansally up top, Mauricio Castro out on the left. These are three guys who had terrific games, and they have changed the face of New England, actually. They've brought in speed.
Inyasi, to me, was one of the most exciting young players I've seen in Major League Soccer. Not just getting down the right flank and getting behind the back four, but this kid tracked back, defended, a wonderful game for him.
Also, Kenny Mansally, I thought he had a great game. He has speed as well, just like Inyasi. And these two Gambians, they're only 19 years old, but they seem to have some sort of telepathy, and it was Inyasi's ball into Mansally that created the first goal. But there are also some negatives coming out of that game for New England. They get the 3-0 win, but they lose Taylor Twellman, meniscus injury. He might be out for 4 to 6 weeks. It's a long-term injury. Steve RALSTON separates his shoulder after having a terrific match.
Yeah, there's no question. I think for Taylor Twellman, he's a star player, but the young blood up front, I think they'll compensate. I'm more concerned about the Ralston injury because tucked in as a central playmaker, I thought he was unbelievable. They're really going to miss his presence.
Yeah, Ralston had such a great game until he got injured. But let's look at the other side a little bit. Let's look at Houston for a minute. And it's really the defense. I mean, they were a shambles in back.
I think, though, Greg, for Houston, I wouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction. It was a bad game. I think the critical factor for them, Boswell as a central defender with Robinson, Boswell didn't have a good game, and I think that's what it started to break down in the back. They never recovered.
No, they didn't. They also started Brian Mullen out on the right flank, which is sort of an odd choice out there. Richard Mulrooney was in the midfield. It took them about 6-7 minutes to change to a back three from a back four because they were getting killed in the midfield. But, you know, this is a team that they didn't start well in 2007 either. They didn't get their first win until May. In the first 6 weeks, they just really kind of looked atrocious. So they ended up winning the cup, though.
Again, Greg, this game got away from them. You mentioned Ricardo Clark, Brad Davis not in the lineup. I still think Ching needs a secondary forward that he can work with. But I'm not that worried about them yet.
Certainly not. Dominic Kinnear knows how to produce a winner, and they also have Champions Cup going on this week for them. So they had to travel down to Costa Rica. I'm sure that was a factor as well. But the defending champions off to a bad start. New England looking good. Well, Shep, some of the other things that come out of round one for MLS, the main story has to be sort of Los Angeles and their collapse. They lost 4-0 to Colorado, and what's the opposite of sexy football? Because that's pretty much what they played, right? What's going on in La La Land?
Yeah, Greg, I tell you, they were horrific, and I really think embarrassing. Now, if I had to make an argument for LA, it would go something like this. I did it 30 years ago with Pelé, where you do a world tour and then you come back and open the season. LA, to me, was totally unprepared. They haven't had a preseason. They've been on a global tour. They look tired. They didn't look motivated. They're playing at high altitude. Landon Donovan really hasn't played with Carlos Ruiz, just as an example. Right. So I'd make the argument that this is just the start of preseason for them.
Well, the other thing is they need to maybe do something to bring either Beckham or Donovan into the central area of the field because they got nothing in the midfield and they got killed going the other way. So let's talk about Colorado a minute. Christian Gomez comes in from D.C. He has changed this team. He's given them a spark in the midfield. This is a very good midfield. You have Colin Clark, Gomez, Terry Cook, who was just named Player of the Week. I mean, is Colorado turning the corner?
We've talked about this Colorado team when we were previewing the season, and we thought that if healthy and Mastroeni back in the lineup, they could have the best midfield in terms of balance in the league. They certainly showed it, but they showed it against LA. So I'm not jumping on that bandwagon yet. I think LA's got a lot of work to do.
Well, it's still the early going in the season, but Colorado's young kids finally seem to be coming through. They've won the Reserve League the last 2 years, so Colorado starting to look good. Now, another team that also looked good, Kansas City. I mean, they brought in their two big studs, Ivan Trujillo from Colombia and the big guy, the louse, Claudio Lopez. And these two guys scored. It's an immediate impact.
I love Kansas City. I loved them before. I picked them to finish first. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Great little atmosphere at the game. The crowd was there. And anytime your new players, your big ones, come in and perform, like Lopez, Trujillo, Conrad looking good, Hartman looking good in goal. Great start.
Terrific start also considering that they played against DC. Now DC has some problems, obviously. We saw them. I think for them it's just a question of needing a little more time to gel. They need to get Gallardo into the rhythm of MLS a little bit. Luciano, EMILIO needs to pick things up a little bit. I mean, what do you think of DC?
I actually thought they looked decent. I mean, they didn't play badly.
It wasn't Los Angeles.
No. And I think we've seen this historically. The teams like Houston and DC United that are competing in the CONCACAF Cup, it takes a little bit out of them, but I still think DC will get it right.
Well, a couple of teams that are trying to pick it up a little bit, Real Salt Lake and FC Dallas, they gave up some late goals. They had the win sort of in the bag. Real Salt Lake was up 1-0 until Blanco scored a goal in added time, and then Dallas was up in about 84th minute. They gave up a goal to Chivas. So these are teams that need those points.
Well, out of those two games, the one I feel for is Salt Lake because I thought they dominated in the game. I mean, they got, the first goal, the goal on an own goal. Dima Kovalenko gets put in the game, whips a ball in, own goal, and then of all people, Blanco with a wonder strike. But certainly. Salt Lake has much to look forward to.
And I like their attitude after the game. They came out and they said, look, this is not going to be the old Salt Lake. This is a new team. We're going to get forward and start to really move on from this and be positive. Dallas, on the other hand, they actually looked pretty good. I thought they missed Drew Moore a lot in the defense, but I thought Juan TOJA looked like his old self. The mullet was flowing and he was getting into the attack. Columbus also looked good, huh? Big win against Toronto, 2-0. Adam Moffat, a young kid that Ziggy Schmidt has been playing up a little bit. He came out, had a great goal. I mean, the question we have to ask, of course, is they're playing Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto, talk about abysmal, but I like what Columbus did. Remember, they have some speed wide out of the midfield, Rogers and Gavin. Gavin played a beautiful through ball for Moreno to run onto, so a very solid performance by this Columbus team. When you look at the schedule, Ziggy Schmidt had to be thinking, when he saw that schedule, saw Toronto need to win this game, he got the job done.
Well, lots of goals in the first week in MLS and a couple of surprises. Los Angeles in trouble. Columbus, perhaps a team to watch out for in 2008. Over the past few weeks, we've been doing these preview shows and we've been a little remiss in attending to our mailbox duties. So we're going to get caught up a little bit and read some of your emails and answer some of your questions. And we'll start with Manuel Lopez from Los Angeles, who asks, will the San Jose and Los Angeles renew their rivalry, or has the LA Chivas rivalry killed it? Well, Manuel, let me just start by saying what killed the San Jose-Los Angeles rivalry was San Jose moving to Houston. So before we even get going on that. But the LA Chivas rivalry really hasn't created anything quite yet on the field. They haven't had any meaningful playoff series or anything like that. There was, Jesse Marsch kicking David Beckham last year, but that was more just kicking David Beckham. The LA-San Jose rivalry was always built on all those great playoff series they had, the California derbies.
I totally agree. And Manuel, you can't manufacture these rivalries. Chicago and New England hate each other. It started in the playoffs. It got rough. Salt Lake and Colorado started with an incident off the field. DC United, New York, same thing, playoff battles. So these rivalries are real. I think they're going to continue.
I think so too. And I think San Jose and LA could actually spark it again. They play on Thursday this week, so you never know what might happen. And there might be some fans from San Jose traveling down. Speaking of fans, there's a little bit of controversy about traveling fans right now. We got an email from Stephen Egan, a member of Section 8 out in Chicago, and he asks, what is our opinion on MLS traveling fans to away games? So 2,000 Toronto FC fans go to Columbus this past weekend. They make it a sea of red in one end of Crew Stadium. Now a bunch of Chicago fans want to go up to Toronto for that game up there. 500 requests for tickets from the Chicago fans. Toronto said, we can only give you about 125, 130 tickets in one section. They then upped that to about 200 using other tickets in other places. So Chicago fans a little bit disappointed that that was happening, but Toronto, they had a great argument in this, saying we're selling out the stadium. We can't just allot all these tickets.
Well, this is actually, Greg, a new phenomenon that is happening in this country, because in Major League Soccer, fans travel. I think it's great. In the other sports, they really don't do that. So it's a pleasant problem to have. I think Major League Soccer has always been fan-friendly. Having said that, if I'm Toronto, I'll tell you what, they better start worrying about their players on the field. Otherwise, there are going to be plenty of tickets available.
Yes, that's for sure. Now, speaking of Chicago, we also got a question from Rufus in Chicago. Chicago, lots of emails, huh? They asked what we thought of Blanco being made captain for the opener against Real Salt Lake. Well, I'll tell you what, Rufus. I believe that Blanco is one of the greatest players in MLS right now. I think he's entertaining. I think he's fun. He scored a terrific goal to get the tie for Chicago out at Real Salt Lake. I know, Shep, you have some different opinions of Mr. CUAUHTEMOC Blanco.
Mr. Blanco, Greg, he has talent, but I'll tell you what, his behavior to me is an embarrassment. He's horrifying. He's whining. He's diving. He's chirping at the referee. A player goes by and he flops. That's not the kind of player I want to watch.
Well, Jason Christ, the coach for Real Salt Lake, said something very similar. He said, other than the goal, what did Blanco do? He ran around and he whined. Now, I actually believe that's part of the entertainment. That's why people come out and watch him. We say that nobody likes it, but people love to go out and boo it just as much as they love to go out and cheer it. Now, if you have any comments or questions, you can email us at extratime@mlsnet.com. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have, but I have to say the studio looks good. Shep, you're looking good. That's all the time we have, but Shep and I will be here for another edition of Extra Time next week, so join us and we'll take it around.